Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
It's Friday, I'm free again. I got my motor running for a wild weekend. It's finally Friday, I'm out of control. Forget the working blues and let the good times roll. It's gonna be a rock and roll weekend. From 8 o'clock when the show begins. Get on the phone, call up all your friends.
Where the hell are we?
Tell them it's going to be a rock and roll weekend.
I don't want to think. I just want to bang on the drum all day. I'm gonna bang.
I think Joe thought he was being figurative when he said earlier this week, where the hell are we? He was probably, we've determined here, we have fact-checked, we believe he was being literal. Stopped in the speech, looked around, where the hell are we? And I got to tell you, after seeing that campaign speech in Philadelphia last night, I echoed the sentiments of Joe Biden. Where the hell are we? That was a campaign speech. I don't know if you saw it. I'm watching this last, and I'm like, this is so incredibly blatant, so incredibly hypocritical. And I know I use that word a lot. Forgive me. It's not a crutch. I just don't know any other way to describe it. Let me give you some examples, some proof. Earlier this week,
Everybody's entitled to be treated with dignity. Just simple dignity.
yeah, simple dignity. Last night,
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
so then he insults Republicans, insults Trump supporters. But you just said earlier this week that everybody is to be treated with dignity and all that good stuff.
That speech was completely deranged.
It was. And John, tell me, so I like it. Let me substitute the word hypocritical, and I'm going to steal Steph's word, deranged. Seriously, and listen, we have our point of view. You know where we stand on things. You know how we feel since the tragic events of January the 20th, 2021. This is impactful stuff. This isn't complaining. Everything that they are doing, from the White House to local progressives, these have real-life effects on us. But it's just stunned. And I try to be honest with myself. I'm watching this last night, and if I'm a little over the edge, I know Steph's going to call me on it, and John, I want to get your thoughts too. But he's got like this red backdrop, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, just the shape of it. And again, I'm biased. I'm like, man, it starts to bear a resemblance to like a Nazi flag or something. Am I way off base? If you look at background pictures, it could just be me.
It's not just you. The socials are lit up with, clips of the pictures. I mean, it's insane. And people are like, does he not have an advance team? Did anyone look at that stage before they let him walk out there? Was it purposeful? Because that's even crazier. I mean, just an awful look for the president of the United States.
But fitting. You are going to do what we tell you to do, and we're going to lie our asses off. So many lies last night. John, was the backdrop, was that a thing for you, or you think I'm crazy? And then the lies. I don't know what this guy is talking about.
MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America. No right to contraception, no right to marry who you love.
What the hell is he talking about? Who says you don't have any right to contraceptives? I can go to Walgreens right now. I can go to Kilgore's Pharmacy and buy condoms and probably a whole bunch of other stuff. What does he mean, taking away my right to contraceptives? And I have a right to marry. As a matter of fact, I've done it twice. Who took away anybody's right to marry who they choose? And the thing is, and then nobody calls them on it. They just, the national news outlets, they eat it up, and I get frustrated because what they are doing has real life consequences.
Let's also point out something that the media, a lot of national media won't say, Branden, and you will remember this. Candidate Bill Clinton candidate Barack Obama opposed same-sex marriage.
Yes.
That is a fact, folks. Now their position evolved, as did many Republicans, but that is certainly something that is candidate. In fact, President Clinton signed the Defense of Marriage Act.
This is September 2nd. Was it 1945? World War II officially ended.
Yes.
September 1st, 2022. Joe is trying to reignite World War III by criticizing good, hardworking American people that believe in conservative values. Joe Biden is attacking us, and here's where these things really affect you. Just not complaining, although, yeah, complaining. Illegal immigration, for example. Number one, they lie about it. Alejandro Mayorkas a couple of months ago.
What I meant is precisely that. The border is closed.
He lied just like Joe lied last night. They're taking away your right to marry who you want, taking away your right to contraception. And then they lie about the border. And I had a great conversation yesterday, a very thoughtful conversation, actually, with a coworker, not here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, but a coworker in the Zimmer Communications building, and got into a really deep conversation. We disagree on a lot of things politically. And I was saying, people think if you're against illegal immigration that you are racist. And we got into this discussion. No, there is a human element. Those people that come in here illegally, we have a legal process, but the people that come here illegally, yeah, they're human beings, just like me, just like Mr. Houseworth, just like Marsh, just like Steph, myself. They are human beings, and they have a heart, and they have a mind, and they have a soul, and all that stuff. It's not the people that we are against. It's not that at all, but people think that. And then illegal immigration, how it affects us. Well, number one, the cost to taxpayers. And then think about the people that live along specifically those counties, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California, where their property gets trampled all the time. Our fellow Americans having to spend money all the time. And I look specifically, you bring it closer to home. 1 year ago, Hickman High School in Columbia, huge town hall, law enforcement, counselors, students, parents of some 20-plus young people that had died of fentanyl overdoses. Where is fentanyl coming from?
The southern border.
Southern border. So this is affecting people here in Missouri. And this fentanyl thing, remember a couple of years ago, was prescription opioids, and now it's this fentanyl stuff. It's across the border, and it's raging like a California wildfire. That's how illegal immigration is affecting you and your neighbors. And by the way, there are people, especially younger people, that are dying right here where we live all the time from fentanyl overdoses. More often than not, it doesn't get news coverage. Drug overdoses, suicide. John, typically as a rule, that's not a news story, correct? From a journalistic standpoint. And I love this. So Greg Abbott, by the way, governor in Texas, he's been sending. So we have Chicago, which I think is a sanctuary city. Chicago says, hey, listen, if you're an illegal alien, if you are breaking the law, you're welcome to come here. So Greg Abbott has been sending illegal immigrants to New York City, Washington, D.C., and we know what the mayor in D.C. did. She called the National Guard. What are you doing? We need help. And Greg Abbott says, yeah, didn't you just deny us some help down here? And now that's the hypocrisy. Now, the mayor, she wants help in Washington, D.C. Lori Lightfoot, mayor of Chicago, she's not a fan of what Greg Abbott is doing.
Governor Abbott's racist and xenophobic practices.
He's racist. Lori Lightfoot calling Greg Abbott racist. And we all remember this.
Today is Chicago Mayor Lightfoot's 2-year anniversary in office. To mark that occasion, Lightfoot announced she would only grant one-on-one interviews to black and brown journalists.
Lori Lightfoot is calling Greg Abbott a racist. Just incidentally, I'm going to guess those buses that they're putting the illegal immigrants on, I'm guessing they're air conditioned from the 105 degrees confines of southern Texas. Yesterday's high in Chicago was like 85 degrees. It probably has nothing to do with anything. So these things, they affect us, and we hear the lies from the administration. the border's closed. Oh, my God, there's record number of people crossing the border. Recently, a Border Patrol chief said, and here's the word, we've used this a lot, I have crutches. Hypocrisy. I overuse some of these words. I get it, and I know, but I can't think of. I've got a new crutch, and I've only used it once this morning. Deranged. I'm stealing that.
Deranged. It's fear. It's really, the Democrats are all about, trying to make people afraid, and they used it during COVID. They said, oh, there's this big scary thing. You got to stay home. We'll protect you. We're the government. And Joe Biden's speech last night was all about fear. It was saying they're turning us backwards. You should be afraid of the MAGA Republicans. You got to vote for us because we're all afraid. And I think, that is no way to live. And you shouldn't have to scare people into voting for your party. You should be able to just talk, honestly about the issues. And I honestly, I think, I don't know who's advising him, but I would love to see the poll numbers on Tuesday after, on his approval after that speech, because I think it's got to backfire. I think as sleepy, we talk about voter turnout, how horrible it was for Missouri in the primary. But I think if any Republicans were asleep before yesterday, they see that speech and they see the red lights and they see his angry face and they say, we can't do this anymore. And it was not an address to the nation. And I hope you share this with your friends and coworkers during the Labor Day weekend. I hope you share them and do it nicely. Say, listen, here's facts. We're not criticizing. We're pointing out facts. We'll let Joe criticize himself. We'll let Karine Jean-Pierre, White House spokesperson. Yes, I think this was yesterday. She was saying, when Joe was talking earlier this week, MAGAs and extremism, she tried to soften it up. Hours later, Joe's on stage repeating what she tried to clean up. Stephanie, how are you on a Feel Good Friday? I'm doing well. How are you, Brandon? Excellent. Thank you for asking. What about you, bud? All right, I love this.
It's a give to Nate Pete. Bounces it outside. Got free from Grubbs. Pete hits the accelerator from 35 yards out.
Mizzou picks up a win last night. Pace was 50 points on the board, John. I went to bed. I was diving in and out between Joe's speech and the Mizzou football game. So, Chris, yesterday we asked you about your optimism for the season, and you said a lot, you wanted to see last night. After last night's game, you got any different outlooks on the season?
I think the early returns on that defense being more aggressive is really handy for doing my assessments of how I think this team's going to go going forward. As a matter of fact,
Chris or Stephanie, do you remember the last time? I think, was it 3 in the first half? 3 interceptions?
Yep.
In the first half? You remember the last time Mizzou did that in the first half?
Oh, man. I knew this 12 hours ago.
You don't remember because it was before you were born. Really? Yeah, 1982. I think against Colorado.
Colorado State, I think.
Woody's wagon. Oh, my gosh. I remember the good old days. All right, welcome into a Feel Good Friday. Everybody's here. My name is Branden Rathert. John Marsh, Christian for Hannah, who's back following Labor Day. And we are getting ready for the daily D.C. run. Oh, by the way, coming up 6:35, test scores. Missouri test scores. New policies from local districts and how some of those things from a federal standpoint, national standpoint, how they affected us. Meanwhile, 5 minutes from now, we are going to do the daily D.C. rundown. Well, as if last night wasn't fun enough, I guess the J6 hearings are coming back? Wait, there's more? Steph's got more for us. Stick around. It's the daily D.C. rundown with Stephanie Bell. 5 minutes from now on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri, featuring Branden Rathert.
What if you could have all the money you want?
What would you do with that money?
Have you ever heard this saying?
A penny saved is a penny earned.
What does that even mean? And who still uses pennies?
Wow. Money can be scary and confusing, so here are 6 steps on how to earn and save money like a boss.
Number 1, find the things you're good at. I mean better than good. Good enough that people will want to pay you to do it. Maybe it's woodworking or juggling things that should never be juggled. Regardless, if you get good enough, eventually people will pay you for it. But that takes time. So while you work on your nunchuck skills, let's move to step 2.
Get a job. Don't sit around waiting for an Instagram model recruiter or a movie producer to come find you in your bedroom.
Hey kid, you want to start on my movie?
Are you for real, bro?
No.
Unless you're in a movie with an unrealistic storyline, your first job is probably not going to be something you really love. You might get your start by mowing grass, or babysitting, or flipping burgers.
1 eternity later.
You've got to start building your resume, and that means just doing some good old-fashioned hard work. Which brings us to tip 3.
Work hard. Everybody wishes that they had that special something that distinguishes them from somebody else. A special magical superpower that makes people respect them.
I respect you.
Well, I've got news for you. This superpower exists. What? But no one is born with it. It's called hard work. It's a superpower because so few people actually do it.
Good, bro.
And that means when you do, your boss is bound to notice. And before you know it, you'll be moving your way up the ladder.
Number 4, when you get paid, stop. When payday finally comes, it feels good. So good, it's almost impossible not to go on highly unintelligent spending sprees. But even if you're not spending your money on random stuff, most people are still tempted to spend money on things that they don't really need. And most people are broke. So don't be like most people. The first money that comes out of your paycheck needs to go in your back pocket or your savings account. This sounds really lame, but for most people, it doesn't actually rain money. It usually just rains problems. And you need an umbrella to prepare for those problems for when they come. And believe me, they will.
Number 5, spend less than you make. You know that joke when people make fun of someone at a chalkboard who can't add 2 + 2 correctly? Well, it turns out there's a lot of these chalkboard people. So don't be a chalkboard people. Millions of people cannot figure this out because they think they need this and then they need that and all of the things. Pretty soon that $2 made becomes $10 spent. That is called financial ruin. Dave Ramsey does not approve. Do not fall in love with doing things you can't afford. If you have friends that do expensive things, find other friends. That's what I did. But I haven't actually found them yet. I don't have friends. Remember, it's your money and you need it! So use your money to take care of your needs. It's okay to say, I'd love to, but I can't afford it. What you're actually saying is, I don't want to be the stupid chalkboard guy. I do not want financial destruction or the plague. 2 + 2 does not equal 22. We've been through this, people.
I'm sorry.
And if your friends don't understand, just let them be broke. Those people aren't going to pay your bills if an emergency comes up, and there's always something else that you can do that doesn't cost anything and won't make you broke.
Number 6, make your money work for you. Money is a lot like seed. If you plant it, it can grow and multiply. But if you eat it, it will not grow. It will go in your stomach and into your colon, and do not eat the seed. 34% of Americans spend more money on coffee than they do on investments. That's a lot of chalkboard people. Ask your parents to help you invest your money.
The conclusion? You don't have to be broke.
You don't have to be the chalkboard people.
Go do something about it.
I guarantee you, there is more that you can do than you realize.
Thanks for watching this how-to video for PragerU. Hope you learned something new. See you next time.
To the rule of law, to the very soul of this country.
The rule of law, says the guy who is in favor of illegal immigration. That's part of the campaign speech last night. That's getting us into today's daily DC rundown. There's more on that. And here's what local folks are saying via text 874-9390.
Mike is saying, don't forget the constant mention of democracy. The fact is that democracy is a threat to 49.9% of the population of our constitutional republic. If I hear one more person, particularly Biden, call us a democracy, I'm going to scream.
Things that get on people's nerves is like for me going through the self-checkout lane. And every single register is talking, please remove your card. Please see an attendant. And they're all going off at once. That gets on my nerves. And for Michael and Mike, that's what gets on their nerves. Roger texting also 874-9390. Anti-Trump is all the Democrats have. Remove Trump. They've got nothing. We agree. What's underneath the circus tent this morning?
Well, beyond Biden's deranged speech last night, which everyone's talking about, there's some other stuff coming up. So today we get the jobs report, which is important. We'll be watching that at 8:30. They're going to try to relaunch the space shuttle tomorrow, apparently. So
do over.
We'll see. I guess they're giving themselves a 2-hour window, but earlier, there was a crack and some leaks, and so they've reloaded the dummies, the mannequins onto the space shuttle, and they're going to try again tomorrow.
That scares me. Even if I have a leak in my car, which is on the ground, I get a little sketchy about getting out onto 54. In a rocket ship? No.
It's like anytime you know they're working on your plane right before you get on it, they're like, just a little delay for maintenance. And you're like, can we just get a different plane? I would rather not get on the one that just had a minor maintenance problem, please.
I think on an airplane, there's no such thing as a minor maintenance issue. Incidentally, coming up before 7, we might do this like 6:50. Funny thing happened on a Southwest Airlines flight. It is hilarious. Hear what happened at 6:50.
I have some flights coming up. I'm not sure I want to hear that. Well, I guess now the J6 committee is after Newt Gingrich. Apparently, there are some emails. He's talking to Trump people. He's talking about the ads. He's talking about electors. And so he's been sent a letter and kindly asked to voluntarily come in and talk to J6. You know, they've still been working in the background, but guess what? They're firing up the TV lights and doing the hearings again right before the midterms, and apparently they're compiling a final report. You know those what is that thing where you guess on the days for like babies? We should guess what day that report is going to drop, because I think I have some good guesses.
November the 1st.
And so also a federal judge is appearing to side with Donald Trump. They haven't made a decision yet, but they said, hey, what's the harm in appointing kind of a special master, a third party to look over these docs? You know, there's really no harm. Maybe it's a good idea. Now, again, there's no decision, but based on what the judge said yesterday, people are thinking, yeah, she might side with him.
And I hope it goes that way, because to quote our president, everybody deserves to be treated with fairness and dignity. Feel Good Friday. What are you grateful for today? I'd love to hear from you. 874-9390. Missouri school test scores, local school district, new phone policy, no cell phone policy in place for a couple weeks. How's that going? We're going to cover that 5 minutes from now.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on. I don't think the president knows how everybody is living right now, so I think the people are fair enough.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? He's, it's similar to WWF as a child growing up, and they just played these sides where it was all scripted and manipulated by the people behind the curtain, dictating the outcomes of who's going to be champion.
Is the Democratic Party leaning more to the left? No, the Democratic Party is actually a cultural Marxist party.
Is the Democratic Party leaning more to the left, in my opinion? I believe all politicians are basically taking money. They'll lean whatever way they can to get money put in their pocket.
Go on, take a exactly what the facts is. He ain't gonna let those two escape justice.
My favorite news subject to talk about is politics with history mixed together.
My favorite news subject to talk about is politics in general. I have a degree in political science. I find the whole Donald Trump presidency and the reactions from the media and the Democratic Party and the Republican Party absolutely fascinating as a study in political science.
My favorite news subject to talk about is I like the local news because it doesn't get into all these politics and actually tells you what's going on in your neighborhood.
Teachers are celebrities, but we don't treat them as such. They are. You're welcome. They are. We don't treat them as such. Celebrities. They molded our lives. That's why we sit in these seats today, man. We know our first grade teacher. We remember our kindergarten teacher. We remember them. You know how they celebrities? You remember you was little, you see your teacher out in public, you freak out. You like, Mr. Berlin, what you doing out here with shorts on?
Right? That's comedian Nori Davis talking about teachers as and that is funny because when you were a kid, especially a real little kid, you would think your teacher
they live at school.
Yeah, they live at school. That's where you are, and to see a teacher outside of school was like celebrity status. And the other thing that was cool, John, you remember this? Whenever you would learn your teacher's first name, it wasn't Mrs. Smith, it was Janelle. And you'd be like, you got a first name? You have a husband? You have kids like me? Isn't that crazy? Anybody remember remember your first teacher or any of your school teachers?
Yeah, my first teacher was Mrs. Lansdowne at Morrow Heights in Jefferson City. She was like, I don't think this is offensive. She was like 90. I mean, there are people who had her for generations in Jeff City. I had her toward the end of her career, and I literally think she taught for almost 50 years. I mean, she was, a legendary teacher in Jefferson City. But I bumped into my fifth grade teacher from Morrow Heights, Mrs. Shaw, at the rodeo this last weekend, and it was so fun because my sister was with me, and she had Mrs. Shaw as well, and we got to give her a hug, and it was great.
John, what about you? your rear end, remember, Miss Pate, also? St. Louis Public School, in I think third grade geography or history, something like that. We had this teacher. Her name was Mrs. Warner, and she wore like a real short bob haircut, kind of a rotund, lovely lady, and frank, very matter of fact. I dug it in the third grade because
Did she have a ruler and just?
No, she had a water bottle, and she would spray you with water. We think it was water. And if little Rathert was in the back of the class, flirting with one of the little girls or talking, psh, 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 you got hit with this. I thought, what a great way to punish me. I didn't learn my lesson, so maybe it wasn't effective. But that's what Mrs. Warner. And then I remember Mr. Hancock, second grade, Scruggs Elementary, South Grand Boulevard in St. Louis. And this dude would pick me up by my belt loops. I'm not kidding. Pick me up by my belt loops. Remember what you got in trouble for usually, if at all, John, in school? Step. Yep, that's what I got too. Maybe it's an Air Force brat thing. Both you and I.
That's what I did. I posted something recently, and I said, cheers to all the teachers who told me that I talked too much, because now I get to talk as part of my job.
Welcome to the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, Brian Houseworthy is here. My name is Branden Rathert. Producer Hannah coming back following after Labor Day weekend. 874-9390. 874-9390. Glad you could be here talking about schools. So we've been back in school a couple of weeks now. Mizzou, they've been back in school. Local.
Not Southern Boone.
Not Southern
We
Boone.
had open house last night. We start Tuesday, finally.
As parents, we're probably ready for that.
I think so.
Get out of the house. I do remember one more teacher story. I was in my 30s and happened to be at an Emo's in St. Louis, the one by Forest Park. I don't know if it's there anymore, but it was by Oakland Avenue where the old arena was, where the Blues used to play hockey, and had a music teacher. His name was Mr. Hornung. Hornung. And he was my music teacher, and I tried learning drums, which simple, right? I never got off their little drum pad, never got off. It was a one and a two. I had, listen, I'm a white dude, no rhythm. I couldn't even do drums. Anyhow, so I see this guy, this is 20, 25 years after the fact, and I go up to him in an Emo's Pizza joint in St. Louis. I'm like, Mr. Hornung, oh my God, it's been years. Remember me? I was in third grade drum class. Remember me?
No.
Nope. Sure enough. Remember how many kids?
Which means you probably weren't like the worst kid, but maybe not the best kid either. No, it's been really sweet. So I also remember Mrs. Morrow. I had her for third grade, and she volunteers at the governor's mansion. And I sent my kids. They have like manners at the mansion where they teach you like what fork to use and stuff. And she was volunteering, and my kids got to meet her, and she was such a great teacher. My sister had her too. So it is fun when you see the teachers years later. She remembered me because I was like one of her best students, I think.
So back in our day, the biggest distraction in school was little Mr. Marsh. Today, it's cell phones. One local school district, Moberly. First year they're doing without, I think, no cell phones in high school, middle school, and I would assume grade school, too.
Give me a break.
Right? I should say the policy is don't get caught with the cell phone. Is that the real policy? Just don't get caught with it.
It has to be.
As a parent, though, because you've got, very young kids in school. And here's what I don't want to go worst case scenario, but what if your teacher is trying to impose CRT on you or trying to make you watch CNN, which happens. They're watching CNN in schools. That is a fact, even in local schools. And little Amelia wants to call, Mom, they're indoctrinating me with John Avlon on CNN. Help me. Do you want her to have a cell phone in that situation? I'm lightening it up, but I'm talking about more serious situations. Do you want your child to be able to call you while you're in school?
I don't want my kid to be able to call me in the middle of the day. And, I've seen this lately. It's like, you remember when you used to call your mom at work and you had to like buzz through the secretary and be like, Mom, can I have a snack after school? And like, I remember being in workplaces where kids, where coworkers' kids called the office, 17 times a day. And I don't want to do that to anybody. It's a parent's choice, right? And right now I choose for my kids not to have a cell phone. If they have a problem at school that day, they can, go to the office and ask to call me, or we can talk about it at home later at night. But, I feel like, whether or not your kid has access to a cell phone should be a parental and familial choice. And if I want my kid to have a cell phone, I don't want the school confiscating it from them either.
You know how much those iPhones are nowadays? Don't take that phone from my child. I had to mortgage my home for that. Dustin Fanning is superintendent for the Moberly School District. He was chatting with KOMU Channel 8. So how has it been going in the early going with the no cell phone policy?
But last week when I was in the cafeteria, this year's different. Students are sitting there talking with one another and they're having face-to-face conversations, and as opposed to what we've seen in the past with everybody looking at their phone.
You know what? He's got a good point there. And I don't mean just for kids, but even adults. Seriously.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't know if it's an old dude thing.
Are you picking on Hannah? Because Gen Z is the worst.
I know.
Yeah, right. They are. You meet some of these folks, they're applying for jobs, they're working in jobs, and you try to have a face-to-face conversation, and they're so awkward because they don't have those anymore.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing that bothers me about, I obviously love my cell phone. As a matter of fact, I've had my Droid here for 6 years. That's how much I love my phone. By the way, coming up like 10 minutes from now, Apple, some iPhones making the news because of something that happened on a Southwest Airlines flight. And we're going to hear it. Pilot had to get on the radio. I'll say, all right, listen, y'all. It's great, especially here on a Feel Good Friday. Forgot where I was going with this.
You were talking about cell phones.
Oh, here's the other thing. When all these kids have cell phones and stuff, I used to work with, when I was in Florida, he would be comparable to Brian Houseworth or John Marsh, journalist, but he was young. He was like 15 years younger than me. And I would ask him, his name was Jeff Knox. And I would say, Jeff, do you know the population of Springfield, Missouri? And he'd go, yeah, I do. And he'd look on his phone. I'm like, so no, you don't know the answer, but you can find it. And he would try to have that yes, I know the answer, because he was when smartphones were becoming a thing and everything was right there. Do you know how many quarts are in a gallon or whatever? Yes, I do know. On the phone, you don't know. You're looking it up.
And the phone, like old man strength, how people talk about old man strength. There's like this thing where like your grandpa used to know all the answers, and Chris's dad used to do this to us a lot. And he'd be like, what's the population of that country? And he would just say very confidently, like 45,264. And you'd be like, are you sure? He's like, how are you going to check? How are you going to check? You don't have a phone. You have no encyclopedia. And so like for years, they learned like wrong facts because he would just confidently answer, and you had no choice but to accept his answer as the right one. Yeah.
Old radio thing, and I hope I'm not divulging any secrets here, but it used to be, so I used to do news. I obviously was not very good at it. And I said, why don't you let Marsh take over? All right. But we had this thing. It was like whenever you had to pronounce a name and it was a difficult enunciation, I had a guy who would say, however you pronounce it, just pronounce it with confidence. Don't stumble over the name. Don't read the tennis scores. Don't read about the guy from Russia that scored a hat trick for the Blues last night. But however you say that name, if you're going to mispronounce it with confidence. Because guess what? If you don't know how to pronounce it, chances are most other people don't.
Except the folks who live in that town that you pronounced incorrectly, Chillicothe.
I like that. So education, I'll come back to education real quick before we move forward. Miguel Cardona, this blows me away because we look at what happened in some of our schools, local school districts last year, that mindset, and keep the kids, keep them at home, do this. And there were a lot of us people saying, in the overall scheme of things, maybe not a good idea to cut off a child's social life as we talk about cell phones and things like that. Don't cut off their social life. Don't take them out of the classroom. We know the risks regarding COVID. Let us make those decisions. And they said, nope, we ain't letting you do it. So I get blown away when our Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, talks about test scores being down.
That is very alarming. It's disturbing, but it's not.
How is that alarming to you? How is that alarming? We told you this was going to happen. And this is not happening just on a national level. Missouri Education Commissioner Margie Van Deven recently talking to our news partners at ABC 17.
We are quite concerned that the achievement gap that we've been working on for decades widened tremendously.
Yeah. And we knew that. And I'm not, by the way, not faulting specifically Margie Van Deven in that case. But yeah, we knew that. We don't want to say told you so, but...
Duh.
All right, coming up a few minutes from now. Here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, getting ready for Labor Day weekend. A lot of cool things happening across Mid-Missouri. Some things happening. As a matter of fact, John Marsh is going to fill us in on that big win for the Mizzou Tigers 5 minutes from now. You got to hear hilarious moment. Southwest Airlines flight the other day, and it incidentally has to do with technology. Something happened on the way to Cabo. Hear that coming up 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri, featuring Branden Rathert.
A few weeks ago, my economics professor claimed that universal basic income is the key to getting people off the welfare system in America. I was wondering if you can explain what universal basic income is and if it's a form of socialism or communism.
I have to say that if that's what the professor said, I am dumbstruck. I want you to all hear the words if I got it right. He's quoting his professor. Universal basic income is a great way to get people off welfare. Okay, are you all aware of why that's not coherent? Why isn't universal basic income welfare? That was priceless. It's like saying there is a way to get people off heroin, and that is with another drug. There you go. Meth. The way to get people off heroin is with meth. Ah, it's genius. Bloody genius. All right, why is that not answer the question? That's what it is. Universal basic income is giving everybody a check every month, and that's welfare. That's the definition of welfare. It's so ironic. It goes back to my earlier thing, crutch. It's okay to have an economic crutch, but not a religious crutch. And the irony is the people who have the religious crutch are the most opposed to economic crutches. That's the irony, because they have a healthier view of life, because they have a wisdom source called the Bible. No wisdom, you end up a professor.
This video I'm going to show you, they're teaching incorrect grammar to give a kid whatever gender pronoun they want. Psychology tells you that when you're talking about sexuality with kids, their brains are not developed. You have to raise a child, you rear a child. They don't know about sexuality. When an adult pushes some kinky sexual ideas upon them, it winds up grooming them to believe whatever the adult tells them. So this is the video by Brain Pop that our kids are spending hours in front of. This is what they're telling them about the pronouns. And ACT already gave the kids the opportunity to choose their own gender when they took the ACT. I got pictures of the forms.
Like meet Moby and Orbot. They are my best friends. Actually, yeah, they can be used as a singular pronoun too. Like if you said, I'm going to see my friend, I could ask, where do they live? Since I don't know your friend's gender identity. And some individuals prefer they as a pronoun. Like meet Orbot. They are my best friend.
We got kids that can't read and write, and then we're going to teach them incorrect grammar. I mean, it's ridiculous, okay? Who gave permission to talk about this with kids? There's two genders. If you're born with a penis and you have testicles, that's just anatomy. You're a male. If you have a vagina and ovaries, you're a female. A man cannot menstruate. A man cannot lactate and breastfeed a child. You cannot give birth if you're a man. If you want to be an adult and do whatever you want with your life, I'm okay with that. Don't push this ideology on children. I'm not going to work in a district that's okay with that. You need to make a clear statement on how many genders are there, because parents are they're already pulling their kids out of public school. They're doing homeschool options. They're going online. It's going to increase as this liberal ideology comes into our schools. This isn't a political indoctrination camp, okay? It's public education. We want to teach education, not left-wing ideas that aren't backed up by facts or science. Thank you.
Give me a word, give me a sign. Show me where to look, tell me what will I find.
We went from a secure border to no border. We went from safe streets to record crime. We went from stable prices to a 41-year high inflation rate. And we went from $2 gas to $5 gas, all in 18 months. I think the nation would kind of like those addressed versus being called extremist and fascist.
Jim Jordan with the I would like to say that the echoing the sentiments of a majority of our country following Mr. Biden's it was a campaign speech last night in Philadelphia. Couple of lies saying
A couple?
at least that I've counted so far. I've been busy trying to do some other things. Saying Republicans want to take away your birth control. He said that. That is not true. Said Republicans said a couple of things that would just simply just are not true, just flat out lies, and people just eat it up. Here's the thing that scares me. We'll move on from this, but what's incredibly frustrating is I think about the people that just, they consume national news and they're like, oh yeah, Joey, oh yeah, he said Republicans want to take away the right to who you can marry. Positively, absolutely not true. Oh yeah, Joe's Republicans want to take away my right to buy a condom from the pharmacy. That is absolutely not true, and I hope you get an opportunity here on Labor Day weekend to share facts with people that are politically ambiguous, politically unhoused right now, regretful Biden voters. What was it, 81 million people voted for Biden. I'm going to hope that there's 81 million regretful Biden voters this morning. Feel Good Friday. Rick, via text, 874-9390. Background for Biden's rant was Orwellian at best. I'm not the only one who thought that. I'm watching that last night, flipping back and forth between the Mizzou game, Joe's speech, and I'm like, that is weird. It's dark. It was this red, glowy background, but the way the shadows set up and everything, I'm not kidding. And I'm thinking, I got to check myself. Is it just me because I have preconceived bias against Joe? Is it just me? But there's other people saying, yeah, it looked bizarre. If you get a chance, check out one of the pictures. And teachers, I love this. We were talking about, do we remember any of our early childhood teachers? Ted, Sister Mary Branden. Apparently she had a wooden stick that she would use to point at the chalkboard with. She also used it, apparently whip him and his cousin once in a while. Welcome into the show. Something funny happened on the way to Cabo. The pilot, Southwest Airlines, I can't remember where the flight is originating from, and apparently they're having issues. They're on the runway, and he's got to get on the intercom and say, "Hey, y'all, hold up a minute."
So here's the deal. This continues while we're on the ground. I'm going to have to pull back to the gate. Everybody's going to have to get off. We're going to have to get security involved, and it's vacation is going to be ruined.
So what happened? He says, hey, listen, we're going to have to get security involved. We're going to have to go back to the gate. It's going to ruin your trip to Cabo. So what was going on?
So you folks, whatever that airdrop thing is, quit sending naked pictures. Let's get yourself to Cabo.
And I don't, maybe you can explain this. Somebody just explained last week airdrops on Apple iPhones, and apparently on the planes, somebody's dropping nude images, and I guess anybody with an iPhone can
grab them. Well, I think you have to select who you're airdropping to. But yeah, if you have a whole bunch of photos, rather than texting them and you're close to somebody, you can airdrop them. You wouldn't know because you have a Droid. I wouldn't know because I don't airdrop nudes to anybody. But in general, you should probably not do that.
Don't do that. They almost turned the plane around. Pilot, come on, y'all, knock it off. We're going to Cabo. Feel Good Friday, celebrating some of the good things that are happening here in the news. This might be kind of a weird question. Anybody remember what happened on this date, 1945? We're going to celebrate that a little bit after 7 o'clock. Feel Good Friday.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
I got my motor running for a wild weekend. It's finally Friday, I'm out of control. Forget the working blues and let the good times roll. It's gonna be a rock and roll weekend. From 8 o'clock when the show begins. Get on the phone, call all your friends.
Where the hell are we?
Tell them it's going to be a rock and roll.
One of those very insightful questions this week from Mr. Magoo. Where the hell are we? Where are we? We are at a Feel Good Friday. Welcome to the show. Campaign speech last night. Stunning, really. I just don't know what else to say. You had a great word for it earlier this morning.
Deranged.
Deranged. Seriously, this was a campaign speech. And John, if you can add any more, if you have any more superlatives to add, because I can just keep saying hypocritical and four-letter F words, but that's all. That's where I am at this point. It was cosmic. Yeah. Do you ever stand around sometimes because what is happening is so asinine right now, and these things are affecting us. They really are affecting us in mid-Missouri. You ever stand around sometimes going, okay, am I the stupid one? Like, am I missing something here? People think that it's okay for the president of the United States to get up and give a campaign speech and then to get up and tell flat-out lies.
MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America. No right to contraception, no right to marry who you love.
What is he talking
Wait, backwards? Aren't we back to the inflation of the early 1980s? Who's taking the country backwards? Come on now.
Oh, so you know where we stand on this, right? We're just frustrated. But, like, you ever, maybe sometimes on the show, Steph, I imagine sometimes you, seriously, like, you stand around and you're like, the emperor's not wearing any clothes, man. Does not anybody else? How is it that there are people here, even in mid-Missouri where we live, that are okay with that? People that voted for him. How seriously? And if you're one of those regretful Biden voters here in Missouri, we're not chastising you, not making fun of you, is what we are saying is welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We explain how these things affect you, and we can go on to the gas prices, the price of groceries, but just the moral issues. And don't do whataboutism, by the way. Well, what about Trump? What about Trump? Trump is not the president, and come up with something better. I wonder how these people morally, you have a president who, number one, is flat out campaigning and then lying. And then I wonder, like, some of these people on the national news outlets, do they really listen? I used to be able to fudge the truth a little bit, but, you know, at the end of the day, seriously, I have to live with myself. And if I've got stuff spinning around in my head because I haven't been honest today, I'm not comfortable. You know, there's a lot to be said for being honest with yourself on anything, not just politics, but even sometimes, you know, you tell just a little white lie. That stuff, no, I used to be really good with it. I was a very good liar back in the day. But I don't behave that way anymore. But I'm wondering with some of these people, like on CNN, like, you can't really be comfortable. You can't sleep well tonight. You can't be okay when you come on and say things like this.
He almost seemed to sort of be reclaiming patriotism. Often you hear Republicans argue that they are the pro-America party.
We don't argue it. We prove it. But I wonder how this person on CNN, Eva McKenda, I think is her name, he was patriotic and reclaiming America. My God, you can't really, and I'm being serious here, like you don't really believe that. CNN is giving you money to say stuff, and you've sold out because you know deep down in your soul and in your heart, you know you don't believe that for a second. You don't really believe that Joe Biden was quite the opposite, right? You don't believe that. Blows me away. You want to move on to something else? We all know where we stand on this. Marsh, you good, bud? All right. Houseworth, you good?
I am good, yes, sir.
All right. Chris is in for producer Hannah. That is Stephanie Bell. My name is Branden Rathert. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We want to welcome you into a Feel Good Friday, and we do a couple of things on Feel Good Fridays. We try to back off some of the heavy political stuff. You know where we stand regarding Biden, and I get it, man. Based on your texts, I get that you're frustrated. So let's talk about some cool stuff. Anybody remember what happened September 2nd, 1945? World War II came to an end. As a matter of fact, I think officially was on the USS Missouri.
Absolutely. And that battleship, obviously, from a big historical perspective, and Sam Bushman spent a lot of time talking about the USS Missouri. And that was, and then it was used later. And then President Reagan actually pushed to have it renovated, and they used it. I know they used for sure the Missouri in the Gulf War. And then after that, I think it was decommissioned.
World War II ends. General Douglas MacArthur.
Be now restored to the world, and that God will preserve it always.
Man, I love that old-fashioned radio stuff. I really do. Just the sound of it. Because you know what? To the power of radio, the majority of the world, TV was not a big thing in 45, if a thing at all. I would have to check with Marsh, and that's not an age thing, John. Okay? It's not. It's not an age joke. Yeah.
Yes. And out of the Capitol in Jeff City, as I recall, right? Which is amazing. And I know Reagan made a big deal out of that. And then it definitely was in the Gulf War, and then maybe a few years after that. But I remember the national media focusing on the Tomahawks coming off there. So, yeah, good point. Yes.
So think about this. Much probably like you're doing today. You're getting ready for Labor Day weekend. There's a lot of things going on. Obviously, a lot of stuff happening at the lake. There's weddings. There's family reunions. Brian's going to see family. I'm going to see my dad. Marsh, what's some of the big highlights of your week? What's happening in around town here?
All right.
Mm-hmm. I love the Jim Dyke cartoons, Jefferson City News Tribune. By the way, got us a gift here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri recently. Nice little mug. We appreciate it. So Hal's out there tomorrow. But think about this. We're all getting ready for Labor Day weekend. We're coming off of a big Mizzou football win. Luther Burden scores twice last night. Cubs. Yeah, amen. Cubs in St. Louis this weekend. Cardinals. Yeah.
RTR.
You can watch this show on our YouTube channel. Just look for Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We wear red on Fridays.
We do. Producer Hannah, first suggested that we wear red to remember everyone deployed. It took a little bit for Brandon to get the memo, but we are all wearing red. Brian is in a kind of a Alabama maroon, but what is it officially maroon? What is it?
Kind of a reddish maroon, if you will.
Crimson?
Yeah, well,
There
it
we
could
go.
be. Yeah, they have different colors. Primarily, this is kind of a maroonish red, if you will.
I'm wearing red for the Eagles. They play Mexico, I think, tonight in football. So I have a son who's playing some 5th grade football. You're wearing Under Armour.
Yeah.
But we are, if you're leaving your house, if you haven't left yet and you want to join us and wear red, a lot of businesses, local businesses here in town are printing special shirts or join in on the fun, and it's fun to see everyone around town and kind of fist bump and say, yep, I'm remembering those folks who are deployed too.
Remember everyone deployed. So here on September the 2nd, 2022, are you ready for this big week? And we're wearing red. We encourage you to do so. We're all sitting around, whether you're watching on our YouTube channel or if you're listening to 104.5 KWOS News Radio 950, 93.9 The Eagle, if you're listening online on the websites, if you're listening on the app, if you're listening in the home, whatever.
That is awesome.
Satan red, as some people might call it.
There was a lot of red on stage last night, for sure.
Yes, very, very impressive. Of course, Nick came to Jeff City to get Hale Henches several years ago, so came to Hawaii's. But, yeah, that I'll tell you, in a point about the Mizzou game last night, about the crowd, we said about 45,000 would be there. But for a Thursday night game, guys, if you really think about it, 47,000, that is pretty good. That really is. And I was impressed with it. I did get a text. I thought the game would be closer. As I said earlier this week to you, Eric Wilde, the Jeff City police chief, texted me during the game and was saying it's not that close right now, so he was giving me a little hard time. But I thought Louisiana Tech, if they had gone more to that play action was working, but they kind of went away from it. Didn't help throwing the interceptions. Mizzou looked really, really good.
Branden in the Wildcat. Branden up the middle for his second touchdown tonight. Luther Branden.
And that's what almost 50,000 people wanted to see. I got to be honest with you. Listen, I want Mizzou to do well. And
Sure.
I want the stadium. I want almost 70,000 people, however many people we can cram in there. I want 70,000 people all the time, and because they're spending money here in mid-Missouri.
That's right.
I'll be frank with you. So the whole thing with incentivizing students to sell tickets to games. Hey, we'll pay you. You can go sell these tickets for us. And I get the idea. It just, my initial reaction to that was it's just kind of creepy. It seems like, hey, let's use all these kids and we'll sell tickets. So I thought we would have more than 47. That's what I thought. But
I got it.
Yeah. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I was singing the praises of radio.
Yes.
So I was trying to say, as we were highlighting some of General Douglas MacArthur's speech, September the 2nd, 1945, when World War II officially came to an end, as John was telling, TV wasn't really a big thing. What were we doing? What were people in 1945 doing? They're doing kind of the same thing that we're all doing right now on a Feel Good Friday, whether it's the app, watching on our YouTube channel, listening in your car, online on the computer in 1945, September the 2nd, when people officially heard about the end of World War II, they were all gathered around the radio, listening, hanging on every word that was being said regarding probably was one of the biggest news stories of the day, of the year, maybe of that generation, all hanging around the radio like we're doing today. We want to thank you. Coming up, usually 7:25-ish, we do What's Hot with Hannah. Since she's out right now, we're doing What's Shaking with Steph. I like it. What do you got for us?
This business is going cashless.
As a matter of fact, their primary thing is almost secondary now. Is
Yes.
it making sense? All right. Hear that story. What's Shaking with Steph 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri, featuring Branden Rathert.
When I think about players taking a knee during the national anthem, I think that the very thing that they're taking a knee on, I think is not being taken in consideration. I think everyone's kind of focusing on the flag and the national anthem opposed to what's really the cause of why he's taking a knee.
What do you think of the NFL players taking a knee during the national anthem? I think the cause behind it is true, but I don't like the execution of it.
What do I think about NFL players taking a knee during the national anthem? I don't think that's the right forum to take a knee. I think there's a lot of issues that needs to be addressed. I don't know that that particular forum is the right one to do that.
What do I think about NFL players taking a knee during the national anthem? I think there's better ways to make a point, make a statement, maybe use some of your millions of dollars you spend on mansions and cars and actually put it towards a cause. Use your time and effort in changing something. I don't think kneeling on a field is going to change anything except be divisive.
What do I think about the NFL players taking a knee during the national anthem? You know, it's a form peaceful protest. I think they're open to do, whatever they would like to do. So, I mean, they're just viewed in a higher standard than everybody because of the platform that they play on, and I don't feel like that's completely fair to them being able to use their freedom of speech. What do I think of the NFL players taking a knee during the national anthem? Protest is the foundation of our country. You can do whatever you want to do. Now, those players are going to have to be accountable to their employers. They're going to have to work that out. Some people are going to be mad about people taking knees. I don't know. I take knees. I stand up. That's how I worship, so that's it.
Usually at this time we do What's Hot with Hannah. Hannah's back following big Labor Day weekend, so we've decided to do, instead of What's Hot with Hannah, we're doing What's Shaking with Steph. I kind of like it. It was kind of the fun thing people might talk about today.
Well, there was a viral post earlier this week about how Starbucks was going completely cashless, and Starbucks has had to debunk this and fact check it, and they said, whoa, we're not going completely cashless. And actually, it's up to the franchisee. And so somebody took a photo, and apparently it was a store policy that store was going cashless. But if you think about how people use Starbucks, it really is mostly cashless because people use their app and they use gift cards. And I find this fascinating. And what folks are saying now, especially like Forbes and Money magazines, is that Starbucks isn't even in the coffee business anymore. They're essentially a bank.
Okay.
Because
all right.
Yeah, because people load that card, they load their app, and now the money's not sitting in my bank, it's sitting in Starbucks's bank, essentially, and they're making money off of your money.
You are correct, Starbank.
Exactly. And so I guess most recently it was reported that they were holding over $1 billion in other people's money, which in context, 85% of U.S. banks aren't holding $1 billion. And so Starbucks is actually bigger than a lot of banks as far as the amount of money they're holding. And also, they're not regulated as a bank. So they're also saving on like government regulation and other things. And other stores have tried to copy this and really get people to dump their money into, gift cards and store apps and stuff. But Starbucks seems to be, a master at it. And I think, now that they're kind of backing off of it, I mean, it's to their benefit, right? Sometimes you go viral and you're like, oh, no, we didn't really mean it. But, man, if they can convince people to go cashless, they're making a load of cash.
I thought there was something, I don't know if this went viral or not, but I was goofing around a little bit on my Twitter account, which is @RathertBranden. By the way, I would be an incredibly boring follow because I just do very little with and I should do more. But if you want a good follow, @Stephanie S. Bell on Twitter, @Stephanie S. Bell. But I did see on Twitter, Bezos, he tweeted a picture. He was eating at McDonald's or something, and he was talking about how, this is so great, this food after all these years. And in California, where they're passing a law, again, that progressive mindset, these people have sick brains. They're going to force, lawmakers in California are going to force fast food restaurants to pay employees, I think, like $22 an hour. And the people are like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get more money. No, you're not. A lot of you are going to lose your job. And then guess what? The French fries and burger, the price is going to go up. Fewer people can afford it. But anyhow, I thought it was interesting because people said, well, see, these fast food, you got to pay these people so they can go out and buy a house in the 65203 area code. Jeff Bezos, guy who made his fortune I don't think his dad gifted him any money. This guy made his own fortune. He worked hard. Somebody didn't say you've got to pay this. Blows me away. Have you ever heard of quiet quitting? It's interesting. We're going to cover that coming up about 5 minutes from now here on a Feel Good Friday on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
I think just local news is like the most important stuff to me, even though it's kind of like bad stuff going on around me, but it's the most relevant to me.
Where I come from, there's an old plowboy out turning up dirt. Where I come from, there's a preacher man in a cowboy shirt. Where I come from, where a couple boys fight in the parking lot. No, nobody's gonna call the cops. Where I come from. See that door right there? Man, I swear that it ain't never been locked, and I guarantee that it never will. That old man right there in the rocking chair at the courthouse square.
I don't know. I don't think I have a favorite news subject to talk about. I think anything that creates good discussion, anything that you can talk about with other people, that you can exchange ideas without getting angry at each other, and you can share opinions and broaden your own thoughts on things. I think those are the best subjects to talk about.
My favorite news subject to talk about is probably the environment. I think people don't take into account what's going on in the world right now and all the pollution that's happening, especially in our oceans.
My favorite news subject to talk about is I like the local news because it doesn't get into all these politics and actually tells you what's going on in your neighborhood.
My favorite news subject to talk about is politics with history mixed together.
Favorite news subject to talk about is probably politics, just because everybody has their own opinion about it. I just like how they bash on Trump, and whether it's right or wrong, I think he's got a bum deal. But so I think it's fun to talk to people about it.
We talk about your work, how your boss is a jerk. We talk about your church and your head when it hurts. We talk about the troubles you've been having with your brother, about your daddy and your mother and your crazy ex-lover. We talk about your friends and the places that you've been. We talk about your skin and the dimples on your chin, the polish on your toes and the run in your hose, and God knows we're gonna talk about your clothes. You know talking about you makes me smile. But every once in a while, I wanna talk about me, I wanna talk about number one. Oh my, me, my, what I think, what I like, what I know, what I want, what I see. I like talking about you.
I just wanted to thank you very much for being where you are for 3 hours of my day.
I'm a new listener and already a huge fan.
You're calming for my soul.
Hey, hey, baby, can't you hear me calling? So let's stay home and enjoy the view. 'Cause I just wanna be loved by you, yeah. Don't answer the door, don't answer the phone. Let's tell the world to leave us alone. 'Cause I just wanna be loved by you. Baby, just you.
Like I used to do a joke in my show, it's always white people being offended on behalf of someone else that's not offended every time, okay? I did a joke called, I go, just because your kid is a Bible name doesn't mean it's gonna be a good kid, because in 6th grade, a kid named Jesus stole my bike. It's not that good of a joke, you know? Literally every show, a white woman would be protesting, I can't believe John Crist says he's a Christian and he is racist. Literally every show, a Latino guy would walk past me and goes, yo, my name's Jesus, I got your bike in the trunk.
I like that when you can have a sense of humor about that stuff and not get bent out of shape and not get woke about those kinds of things.
I love John Crist. He's hilarious.
If you get a chance, look up the guy. If you're looking for something for a laugh, this John Crist guy, sorry. He's got kind of a cool story. I've been checking out some of his stuff. Is this sacrilegious to talk about the bit he did with the Twitter thing and if Jesus and the 12 disciples had a Twitter account?
Yeah, that one's pretty good.
And here's what I respect and love about this guy is that, like, you know what? And listen, sometimes, and we get it here sometimes. Oh, you can't joke about that. Oh, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe. Relax, man. And I get it. Not to offend any of your good senses, but it's like, listen, man, there's better things to get bent out of shape about, like real-life racism.
Correct.
Joe Biden, his speech last night, saying us smart people, us conservatives, oh, you're racist, and we want to take this country backwards and all that. Because things like, for example, illegal immigration. Well, you're against illegal immigration because the majority of the people that come here illegally are brown, and that is simply, it's just not true. It's just simply not true. So I think it is also hilarious, sad, when people like the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, he's been taking these people that are crossing the border illegally and draining resources, not only local resources. Imagine like if you lived in Randolph County or Montauk County, and you have all of these people illegally coming into your county every single day. Imagine what that would do to county resources. I'm not even talking on a federal level now, but just imagine what that would do to local law enforcement, local emergency services, all of that stuff. It is an incredible drain. So Gregory Abbott said, maybe I can send these illegal immigrants to what we call sanctuary cities. It's a city where, hey, you come here, you break the law, it's good. So now he's been sending them to Chicago. He's been sending illegal immigrants to Chicago. Lori Lightfoot, all of a sudden, she's not real keen on this idea.
Governor Abbott's racist and xenophobic practices of expulsion have only amplified the challenges many of these migrants have experienced.
Lori Lightfoot calling Greg Abbott a racist.
Today is Chicago Mayor Lightfoot's 2-year anniversary in office. To mark that occasion, Lightfoot announced she would only grant one-on-one interviews to black and brown journalists.
My goodness, I don't know who's funnier, John Lori Lightfoot or John Chris there. Wow. Yeah, that is remarkable. And see, that's the thing. People, well, you complain about Democrats and you pound on the desk. Met a very nice young lady, I think. Gosh, I'm bad with names. Help me out, Sherry. What was her name? Sorry, Stephanie. Help me out. I think her name was Megan. Forgive me if I get that wrong. Atterbury Auction and Realty Company. I was there yesterday chatting with, there's a gal by the name of Lori and Megan. And Megan doesn't listen to talk radio. And so I was telling her, I'm like, hey, what we do here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio, KWOS 950. It's not like, if you've never listened to talk radio, I think people, they have a negative image, I think. Yeah. And it's like, no, man, that's not what we do. We point out facts when you have a hypocritical, lying, progressive Democrat mayor who wouldn't talk to white journalists because of the color of their skin, but then calls somebody a racist because they're sending illegal immigrants to her city where she welcomes them. This stuff doesn't make, it just doesn't make sense at all. So it's just interesting, the hypocrisy. And so we point that stuff out and try to show this is the line from point A to point B and how it affects you. And I tease my good friend Stephanie by calling her Sherry. It's Stephanie. Here's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
It's Brian Houseworth.
Good morning.
John Marsh is here. My name is Branden Rathert. Something we can do for you, 874-9390. I want to get a little, I want to talk about, and I didn't want to, and this is not about Eric Greitens, but it's kind of about that story. But I want to do this first. So Joe Biden, with his campaign speech last night, the White House didn't say, oh, Joe's doing a campaign speech tonight. They didn't tell us that. They said he's going to be addressing the nation. That's how I heard it. Mm-hmm. It was a campaign speech. He started World War III last night, I think, with his lies and criticizing people, criticizing good Americans. It was on this date, 1945, September the 2nd, that World War II officially came to an end. And I want to play some more audio because we got some comments on this via text. This is General Douglas MacArthur aboard the USS Missouri in 1945. And this, we talk about radio and the power of radio. An entire nation, if not the world, huddled around a radio listening to these words.
We are gathered here, representatives of the major warring powers, to conclude a solemn agreement whereby peace may be restored. The terms and conditions...
Peace be restored. And we saw Joe last night not doing that, despite the fact he's unity and everybody deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. He is full of crap. But I wanted to mention that before we move on to this next thing. We got a very cool text from Shelley, and it's a picture that she took from a museum in Hawaii, and it is a menu. Plank owner Robert M. Dickman of B Division kept this commissioning day dinner menu as a keepsake of being among the original crew of the USS Missouri. And it's just fascinating. If producer Hannah were here, we could get it onto the socials for you. But it's a menu.
Wow.
From back in the day, and it's got some names in the menu: mushroom soup, crackers, sweet pickles, olives, giblet gravy, turkey chestnut dressing, whipped potatoes, onions, candied yam. I'm assuming that maybe it was a Thanksgiving Day dinner. But here's the thing that caught my attention. At the very bottom of the menu?
Yeah, cigarettes.
Cigarettes and cigars on the dinner menu.
Why not? Yeah. I mean, back then, everyone smoked, right?
Right.
It was, and even through the 70s, a lot of people smoked, but certainly in those days, they were under a lot of stress and, probably enjoyed being able to smoke at the dinner table, I'm sure.
There's no coffee, though. There's no, after dinner coffee, just cigarettes and cigars.
I'll have some whipped potatoes, candied yams, and iced tea, and Marlboro Red, please, and one for my lady here, too. That's and didn't they send World War troops? Didn't they send them with? And I could be way wrong here, but for some reason I thought, well, Vietnam or in maybe several of those wars, you know what? That is true because I watch the History Channel, and the History Channel never gets it wrong.
They're really good. They do a good job.
I believe it was World War II. That's how tobacco, and it may have been World War I, but this guy somewhere in North Carolina who was trying to peddle tobacco wasn't having a lot of success. Decided. Because I think it was somebody like Chef Boyardee or Kraft. They said, hey, we're going to send our food along with troops and rations. And somebody said, well, why not send these tobacco sticks? And they did. I might be wrong. Welcome into
awesome.
The show. Eric Greitens, failed Senate candidate, former Democrat. He resigned as governor of Missouri. And there was a lot around him and his campaign regarding family issues. And at the time it was... And listen, I want to be up front. I did not like Eric. I liked Eric Greitens' politics personally before he ran for governor, and my dealings with him did not like the guy, and I had my reasons, and everything that I did not like about him came to fruition. All of my suspicions exactly met. The stuff with the child custody case here, which happened right here in Missouri, unfolded in Boone County. It was a big thing leading up through the campaign, but if I could bug you two for a minute, because it made news earlier this week, and to me now, and I've been involved in a custody dispute in Idaho, one of the ugliest things I've ever been through in my life. It's like running for office, I would imagine, because everything you ever did, guess what? The ex-wife brings it up in a courtroom in front of Justice Brumbaugh in Twin Falls, Idaho. And it was just an ugly thing. Fortunately, it did go my way. But there was news about it this week, and I'm like, that's family stuff. Eric Greitens is not in the public eye anymore. A month ago, Missouri voters dismissed him basically again, so he's not relevant. I get the public interest in this. Kansas City Star is really pushing. They want to see what's in the sealed documents. Ultimately, custody case is moving to Texas. It's a family matter. Personally, I'm not comfortable talking about it as much as I personally dislike the guy. It's easy. I'm not going to do it, but it's a family matter. And I'm just wondering, and I'm not passing judgment, and I'll start with you, Brian. Like, journalistically, what is your take on that?
We've reported it this morning with John's actual voicer on the Eagle, and I know John's probably covered it very similar on KWOS. But I think it's news, the fact that it's been transferred to the Travis County, I believe is the county in Texas from Boone County. I tend to agree with you though on the specifics, unless there's something in there that is, and who knows what it would be. If he were still the U.S. Senate nominee, or if he were the U.S. Senate nominee on the Republican side, I'd say probably it'd be a little more newsworthy. But the other thing about it is I've covered family court before, and Stephanie's a lawyer. I don't know how any of this ever got out. Those have always been sealed, and how some of that stuff got out, I don't understand. Maybe it was, I know a few things were said in open court, but Judge Shaw really tried to keep a lot of that limited in what they said. But I know the other outlets probably feel a little differently. It's news that it's been transferred, but unless something is huge in there, I'm not sure how much more we cover this.
I was just curious. What about your take, John? From a journalist point, I mean, you've been doing journalism here in mid-Missouri 30 years. What's your take on it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the other interesting thing is because, and it's just for me, it's just a personal thing. Like, I don't need to talk about it anymore, man. I'm sure his ex-wife has friends here. They had little kids here. She taught at Mizzou, and I'm just uncomfortable with that stuff. Sure. But here's the other thing. People probably still want to know.
Yeah, I mean, the question in voters' minds, I think, was, a lot of people thought Eric Greitens wouldn't come back and run for the Senate. He did. So the question is, are we done with him or not? And a lot of people think no. So I think it's still newsworthy what's going on with him.
Eric may not be done with Eric, but I think Missourians are done with Eric. That's my take. Coming up on a Feel Good Friday. Another new dating website with another twist. We'll do that 5 minutes from now.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri, featuring Branden Rathert.
There was a time in my life when I was angry, bitter, and deeply unhappy. I wanted to lash out at the whole fascist system, the greedy, heartless power structure that didn't care about me or the rest of society's innocent victims. A system that had robbed, beaten, and stolen from my ancestors. The whole corrupt edifice deserved to be brought down, reduced to rubble. I was a perfect recruit for Antifa, the left-wing group which claims to fight against fascism, and so I became a member. Now I was one of those who had the guts to fight against the fascists, who were exploiting disadvantaged people. I was ready at a moment's notice to slip on the black mask and march in what Antifa calls the Black Bloc, a cadre of other black-clad Antifa members to taunt police and destroy property. Antifa stands for anti-fascist, but that's purposely deceptive. For one thing, the very name is calibrated so that anyone who dares to criticize the group or its tactics can be labeled fascist. This allows Antifa to justify violence against all who dare stand up or speak out against them. A few groups boldly declare themselves Antifa, like Rose City Antifa in Portland, but most don't, preferring to avoid the negative publicity. That's part of Antifa's appeal and strength. It's hard to pin down. There is no identifiable leader. To be part of Antifa, you must adopt 2 basic principles. First, you have to have the mentality of an anti-fascist. And second, you must be willing to enforce that mentality. To adopt an anti-fascist mentality means to reject everything that is fascism. But that begs the question, what is fascism? While most Americans associate fascism with Nazi Germany or modern dictatorial states like Venezuela, China, and North Korea, to Antifa, fascism means Judeo-Christian values and capitalism. As an Antifa group said on its Twitter account in 2018, fight against fascism is only won when the capitalist system is smashed. and they mean smashed. Breaking windows, tearing down statues, throwing Molotov cocktails, looting and burning businesses, and harassing and physically assaulting people. We saw it all in the summer of 2020 in Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, and other cities. Antifa is not solely responsible for all left-wing political violence. Not every attack by left-wing radicals is an Antifa attack, but Antifa exemplifies the worst of this dangerous ideology, which is becoming bolder and more prevalent in American society. Joining Antifa was the worst decision of my life. How did I get out of it? Like anyone who gets out of something bad, I encountered something good. The very system that I had sought to destroy. Friends, people who turned out to be my real friends, pointed me to challenging thinkers like Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, and Ben Shapiro, and eventually organizations like the Leadership Institute and PragerU. What they said just made sense and offered me a better way to live. Antifa and the radical left did not care about building a better society. They cared about control. They could only offer me more anger, bitterness, and unhappiness. I always expected to keep my past a secret, but as I saw cities around the country struggling against the rise of left-wing political violence, while left-wing and even liberal politicians said nothing, I knew I had to speak up. If people like me, who know what is really behind Antifa, don't, the left will obliterate what it means to be a free American. So here I am. And here's my message. Young people don't drift to the left because they believe the left is superior. Most do because they have never been exposed to anything else. Leftism has become what Andrew Breitbart once described as the default position. The American idea is more powerful than you think. It turned me around. It can turn others around too. The core of that idea, call it the American dream, is not about money. It's about freedom. That, ultimately, is the reason Antifa has to resort to violence. Because if conservatives are allowed to speak freely, they will peacefully convert more and more of Antifa supporters towards the values of liberty. And then Antifa will vanish like the nightmare it is. I'm Gabriel Nadales, the student rights advocate for the Leadership Institute and author of Behind the Black Mask for Prager University.
That's a nightmare that has haunted me since I was 20. You hear all kinds of numbers. The numbers of the veterans who are committing suicide, the number of veterans who've been to combat, the numbers here in Missouri. I want to put a face to those numbers.
So I love that. You might, oh, that's sad. No, I think John Morlock, veteran and a survivor of a suicide attempt, he now leads the Heroes Outreach Program. This was in a hearing earlier this week in Jefferson City with State Rep Dave Griffith, who does a lot for veterans. As a matter of fact, Mr. Griffith is on the show, I think, Wednesday, talking about veterans, specifically here in mid-Missouri. John Morlock, I think I am going to pick him for one of our winners of the week. This is something that we do every Feel Good Friday. We pick winners and losers. It's funny. We used to nominate them, and people got mad. Well, take a stand. Don't nominate. Pick somebody. And then what happened when we started picking winners and losers?
We also made people mad.
People got mad. Who are you to pick winners and losers? And we said, heck with it. We're going to do what we want. But the cool thing is, if there's somebody that you would like to be included in our winners and losers of the week, we do this every Feel Good Friday, 8:35 here on the show, and we like it because we like the local stuff better. You know, if you got something local, somebody that you want to give a shout out to, and you can tell them, oh, you should listen to Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio, KWOS, because Stephanie and Branden are going to talk about winners and losers of the week, and they do it every Friday at 8:35, and you might hear somebody kind of anonymously giving you some kudos. So if you've got somebody in mind, man, you can call us. It's easier to text. I prefer the old-fashioned way. I prefer the call, but text is actually kind of easier for what we do at 8:35. Some of the other things that we are going to be doing, a whole bunch of stuff we haven't gotten to. There's a new interesting dating website, and I think even if you're not in the dating field, I think this is something that you might enjoy. Quiet quitting. What is quiet quitting? At first, when I heard this, I'm like, oh, this is one of those phrases the kids are using nowadays. But as I started researching it, I'm like, you know what? there's something to that because it's kind of life-work balance. What are you willing to do for your employer as opposed to, okay, that's enough. Now I'm not willing to do this because now you're asking to. And I thought it was just kind of interesting.
I'm opposed to that quiet quitting.
All right, we're going to find out what that is coming up at 8:10. Also something that we haven't gotten to yet. Last week, I don't know how the show got off the rails. We were talking about Stephanie, and you may have seen this when you watch the show on YouTube. People are like, oh my gosh, what kind of, it's just so cool because you get to see behind the scenes stuff that you can't hear on the radio. And Stephanie was talking about her legal dictionary, and she holds her hand. She says, it's like 8 inches. And we said, no, that's not. She brought in her legal dictionary. How big is Stephanie's dictionary? We're going to cover that at 8:10. Plus, we have the morning bell. And, of course, winners and losers, 8:35. Welcome into a Feel Good Friday.
what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, news director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you. Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
I got my motor running for a wild weekend. It's finally Friday, I'm out of control. Forget the working blues and let the good time roll. It's gonna be a rock and roll weekend. On 8 o'clock when the show begins. Get on the phone with all your friends.
Where the hell are we?
Tell them it's going to be a rock and roll.
I agree, Joe. Where the hell are we? After watching that campaign speech last night and then watching national news outlets this morning, really fawning over it. Oh, my God, he reclaimed democracy. He did this. He's talking about patriotism. My goodness. You're right, Joe. Where are we? Let's move forward from that because it is a Feel Good Friday. Let me introduce you to one Mrs. Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. John Marsh is here, too. Chris is in for producer Hannah. Brian Houseworth is hanging out with us. My name is Branden Rathert, 874-9390, 874-9390. What is it that you're grateful for? Russ says, grateful that even though I can't get any new help hired, my help and I have always shown up, and we get her done. Thanks for sharing that on a Feel Good Friday text from Darcy. Striping the Zoo on a Thursday night. What a fun game. And almost 50,000 folks got to see what they wanted. I'm guessing what a lot of folks wanted to see.
Burden in the Wildcat. Burden up the middle for his second touchdown tonight. Luther Burden.
This guy who's making, I wonder how much money he's making. Is that too personal of a question to ask? He's already benefiting from that name, image, likeness stuff. I am okay with that. If somebody wants to hire the fry cook from McDonald's to put your mug on a picture and endorse their product, it's fine. If you're a college student, college athlete, I'm fine. I get a little weird that these colleges, and I think actually was Mizzou the first one to do it. They've hired somebody to help facilitate that, Chris?
Yeah, this is kind of a thing that's been not an official position within athletic departments around college football, but some people have that soft title, right? Just as people who can kind of like coordinate name, image, and likeness deals with, their athletes and getting, businesses from around, the respective towns to, come together and try to create a pool.
Like an agent.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
It's more...
I thought we frown on that kind of stuff in college sports, man.
Yeah, except the college football agents are more under-the-table stuff than over the table, at least historically.
Yeah. Yeah. let me...
Man, I'm going to have to check the tape. It sounds like something they'd want to, after Brian Kelly leaving, they want to, rebrand, do something fresh, do something nice. So it does sound like something they want to get ahead of. So I could check the tape on that, sure.
Does anybody know? So I'm wondering. So Luther Burden, and kudos to him, man. People, businesses here in mid-Missouri have said, hey, man, you come here hyped. We want to pay you money to do this stuff. There's a law firm, the Billboard, I think is that on the business loop in 70.
Close to it, yeah.
Close to it. He's got his name on potato chips. And now, all of a sudden, I'm curious, and I know you should never, ever talk your salary or other people's salaries unless you are a state employee or a public employee, or unless my tax dollars are paying your salary. Then, yeah, I do want to know what you make. But I wonder what this kid Luther is getting for that billboard. Any idea? Anybody?
Well, there's been some interactions. I think yesterday the Missourian was pointing out that, there's some Schmidt's asking the journalism folks for some records. And so I would say similarly, if there's a coordinator at Mizzou and that person has access to some of these contracts or is reviewing them or whatever, they could be sunshineable. So there is a potential that, depending on what that person has or retains under the sunshine law, that someone could find out how much some of this stuff's worth.
Oh, he's asking about, so our Attorney General's asking about contracts as it relates to name, image, likeness stuff?
No, the Attorney General is seeking records from the Mizzou School of Journalism related to, they partner with some fact-checking organization, and so he's submitted a sunshine law request, and they're saying, hey, wait, we're journalists. And most journalists work for a private entity, so their records would not be subject to the sunshine law, and the Attorney General is saying, oh, wait, but you're funded by Mizzou, like taxpayer dollars, so you're subject to the sunshine law. So I'm just saying in the same way, whereas if you were an athlete and you had an agent, that typically is private, so there would be no way to uncover that. But here, if there is a coordinator who is reviewing those contracts or storing those contracts or whatever, there might be a potential that through the sunshine law you could find out a little bit more information about that.
So all of our taxpayer dollars paying for Mizzou, J School, the newspaper, and that is a hot take, man. I would love to be able to do what Luther is doing. Have a business come up and say, hey, Branden, we're going to give you some money, and then we're going to put your mug up on a billboard out there like it's 70 in Stadium, and we're going to give you some money. Or we're going to put your face on I wouldn't want to go on a bag of potato chips, but I think that'd be great.
Just go get 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Get out there and catch a pass.
Yeah, no. And that's why people don't ask me to do that, but they're asking Luther Burden to do it. Have you ever heard of quiet quitting? You get people to pay you to endorse their product. We see it on the Chick Talk all the time. These people are making money to, talk about products. Have you ever heard of the phrase quiet quitting?
No.
Apparently it's a thing, and this is why I wish producer Hannah was here. She'd probably be into this.
When I heard it, I thought it was like ghosting, when you just like leave a party or like a relationship without saying bye, but I think it's something different, right?
So it is, and that was my first take. I'm like, oh, that's where you just 5 o'clock, day's over, and you're gone. You don't tell them, hey, I ain't coming back. It's like you don't call the girl back. You don't tell her that you're done. You just
ghost.
I used to call it the fadeaway program. Back in the day, I don't behave that way anymore, and I haven't dated for 3 years probably. So, but you would just, the periods of interaction and communication would become further and further apart, and then all of a sudden one day somebody would go, "Oh, hey, what are we doing?" But quiet quitting it. That's what I thought it was. You just quit. Don't tell anybody. But apparently it's kind of just saying, hey, you know what? Actually, you want me to do all this extra stuff? I'm not going to do it. You pay me this, and that's all I'm doing. And it's interesting because on its surface, nope. I got to where I am today. You know what? Because I didn't just leave at 5 o'clock. There's a lot of things I did to get to where I am today and to get to everywhere I've been in my career. And I always believe, and it's benefited me, doing extra, going above and beyond, and whatever the company is. And there's always been a benefit. But I look around me and there's people, oh, yep, it's 5 o'clock. I'm out. And I'm like I get mad.
Yeah, well, that's what this you don't actually quit. It's just, in the Gen Z terms, you're setting boundaries and you're preventing burnout and all of that. But it's these same folks who punch out at 5, who never go above and beyond, who will be in the boss's office being like, when am I going to get a raise? And, how do you, unless you're going, especially as a young person, unless you're going above and beyond and demonstrating your worth to your employer, how are you really going to expect to advance? And I think there's a fine line between, setting appropriate boundaries and doing really good work and being a valuable employee. Because if you're punching out at 5, there's going to be someone standing right next to you who is going above and beyond. And there's a difference between doing good work and going above and beyond and being taken advantage of.
Yeah. And that's I think that's a hard thing sometimes, is in that, where's the balance? No, I'm not going to do this because, I've got to do whatever, and I don't need an excuse to leave early. Sometimes I just want to. Seriously, sometimes I don't feel like I have an excuse, but I get that allowance because I've got some, if you will, equity built up. because I've stayed late or I've gone above and beyond. I've done the extra thing or I've tried to help where other people can. And it's I don't get triggered by a whole lot of things. I do get mad about it when I see other people. Nope, I'm out. They're saying, well, I'm going to leave early today because I got to stay late tomorrow. That stuff really bothers me. I'm triggered.
Yeah, I'm not a punch in, punch out kind of person, and I'm basically on the clock 24 hours a day. So I don't understand that, and I do think generationally, I think we're raising a bunch of sissies and people who don't know the value of hard work. But
and to the point, like, well, how come I didn't get that promotion, or how come because you don't seem willing to go above and beyond. I don't think we are going to go above and beyond. And I'd like to ask John's opinion here, but it's 8:15. He's done checked out. His day is... His day is... Yeah. So we've got Stephanie, who just turned 29. We've got John, and then me, because that's what I'm wondering. John, who didn't just turn 29. And let me ask just real quick because I want to get into the Morning Bell with Stephanie Bell, business news. And by the way, important news coming down the pipeline today. Steph's going to get you turned on to that. And Chris, I'm not picking, but your generation, like, where are you on this? You willing to go above and beyond, or do you think nope? If, for example, my afternoon, Chris, by the way, I'll plug his afternoon show he's part of with cousin Andy here on the show from time to time.
Big show, that's right.
Big show on KTGR sports station here within the family. But like, are you like, oh, it's 6 o'clock, show's over, I'm out?
So it kind of depends on what I've got going on at home, right? But I do think one of the more extreme examples of me kind of following that, I'm just here till the work is done, was one time a couple of years ago, I was doing Sports Centers, stuff that plays from like 6 till noon, just recapping the previous day in sports. There was a Cardinals game, Cardinals Diamondbacks in like 2019. This is around the time I was just starting to where, I want to make a good first impression. Good impression with, I think it was Matt Michaels at the time. And so I was in the studio, kicking my feet ready for work, and the game just keeps on going. I left my apartment in the 8th inning, so I was like, okay, I'm ready to go do this. Let's go. I get there, and it's like the top of the 10th inning when I get to work, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, I guess. I can just wait here till this game is over. 13th inning, 14th inning, 16th inning. They played almost 2 full games of baseball before that game ended, and it's like 3 a.m., and I'm sitting there in the KTGR studio just like, please, I just need a recap from the Cardinals radio network. Come on, baby, get me out of here.
874-9390. Travis says you should talk about wages. Keeps your boss honest. I believe it is illegal for a boss to tell somebody they can't talk about their wages with other employees. You can check on that, though. I disagree with that. I don't think you should ever talk wages with your coworkers. I think it's a dangerous, bad thing to do. And I'm going to guess your bosses probably wouldn't like it. Yeah, I think your bosses would agree with me on that. Thank you for that. Also, shout out to Rick. He says he's wearing red today. It's something we do every Friday.
Yep, we wear red to remember everyone deployed. We encourage you to wear red, too.
Yeah, that's why we mentioned we're not doing it to brag. We're just saying, hey, man, here's a cool thing to do. Coming up, Morning Bell, business news, little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. And got some important news coming down the pipeline today.
Jobs numbers are in.
All right, what are they? Be one of the first to know. We're going to do that about 5 minutes from now. Then 8:35, winners and losers of the week.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri, featuring Branden Rathert.
To me, being a Democrat, I know that Democrats will take care of everybody. It's not just looking out for the rich.
Is the Democratic Party leaning more left? Probably not. The people on the left are having a louder voice now.
Is the Democratic Party leaning more toward the left? Why or why not? I don't know, though. I don't know if the party in general is. I think it's more of a reaction to Trump and some of his kind of hardline right-wing policies, and it's kind of forced the Democrats to take an opposite position.
We come together 'cause opposites attract, and you know it ain't fiction, just the natural fact. We come together 'cause opposites attract. Who'd have thought we could be lovers? She makes the bed and he steals the covers. She likes it neat and he makes a mess. I take it easy, baby. I get obsessed. She's got the money and he's always broke. I don't like cigarettes. I like to smoke. Things in common.
The Democratic Party is leaning way left. They're going heavy radical left. Very extreme.
All my soldiers march with me.
He laid on his back, his firearms by his side, hearing no sound, just watching the fireworks in the sky.
Do I think that the Democratic Party is leaning further to the left? Yeah, I think they're becoming more centrist more than anything because they're losing their grip nationally. They're trying to appease more people, so they're actually like losing traction on issues that used to be really important to them, like as a means to try and gain more power, and it's not working.
Like the turn of the whip, I snap attack, front to back, in this thing called rap. Singing like a shovel, rhyme double on a heavenly level. Bang the bass, turn up the double. Radical mind, day and night, all the time. 714, flies the mind. Maniac, radiac, winning the game.
Good morning. 8:27 time for the Morning Bell business news with that little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. And coming off topic regarding quiet quitting at work and should you share your wages with your fellow employees in the workplace. Kind of interesting that then we dive right into this.
And I disagree. I think maybe you should share. There are companies out there that post like all of their stuff and transparency, and it
How
does
much do you
help.
make here? Uh-huh. All right.
Hey, if you share, I'll share. All right. August jobs report shows that we added 315,000 jobs. That's down from, I think, last month we were at about 500,000, and the unemployment rate rose to 3.7. On the specific topic of wages, the pay rate rose actually less than it has been rising. Average hourly earnings rose by 0.3% in August. They were up 5.2% from a year earlier. And I think that's important because we've talked about how much people are expecting now as an hourly wage, even as an entry-level employee, and it's really bleeding employers dry.
Yeah.
You know, having to pay someone $22 an hour to answer the phone way above minimum wage just to be able to compete. It's really putting a strain on employers who already have had significant, challenges over the last several years. So I'm actually glad to see that average hourly earnings tick down a little bit.
California, I think they're passing a law. It's going to become law soon. California Fast Food Workers Act or something, where they're gonna have to pay fast food workers, whether or not you're worth it, whether or not the job is worth it. They're going to have to pay you $22 an hour.
And that's why we're going to get all those food lockers and kiosks and hamburger flipping robots for sure.
Jobs are disappearing. Listen, we're seeing it. We're seeing at these restaurants everywhere to an extent. If you were one of the 50,000 folks at the stadium last night, they got the food lockers. Those are real life consequences. Quick phone call, Timothy. I got 30 seconds for you, bud. What's on your mind?
I think I made more money, or it lasted longer in 2003 than it does today. I don't care how much you make; if everything keeps going up, it's a constant battle to keep ends meeting. And I work for myself, so I'm a contractor, and I do bids. And somebody will go out there and bid a job for $900, and it really costs. That just covers their costs. They aren't making any money, so they hurt the market when they do that. So I can't find anybody. And people don't want to work. Once you show what you do, it's physical work. I'm a painter, so you got to pay them $20 at least. But even then, you got to babysit people.
Timothy,
there's no skill out there.
I know, man. You hang in there, bud. Know that everybody here, Wake Up Mid-Missouri, is pulling for you, man. Thanks for checking in on the show. Coming up 5 minutes from now, we are picking winners and losers of the week.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on. I don't think the president knows how everybody is living right now, so I think the people are fair enough.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? He's, it's similar to WWF as a child growing up, and they just played these sides where it was all scripted and manipulated by the people behind the curtain, dictating the outcomes of who's going to be champion.
Is the Democratic Party leaning more to the left? No, the Democratic Party is actually a cultural Marxist party.
Is the Democratic Party leaning more to the left, in my opinion? I believe all politicians are basically taking money. They'll lean whatever way they can to get money put in their pocket.
Go on, take the money and run. Go on, take the money and run. Go He knows just exactly what the facts is. He ain't gonna let those two escape justice.
My favorite news subject to talk about is politics with history mixed together.
My favorite news subject to talk about is politics in general. I have a degree in political science. I find the whole Donald Trump presidency and the reactions from the media and the Democratic Party and the Republican Party absolutely fascinating as a study in political science.
My favorite news subject to talk about is I like the local news because it doesn't get into all these politics and actually tells you what's going on in your neighborhood.
I was a loser in high school. It was my fault, though. Like, I realized it's my fault. I went to 3 different high schools, okay? The first high school I went to, I was like, wow, everybody here is And then I got to another high school, and I was like, wow, lightning strikes twice. And then I got to the third high school, and I was like, oh, it's me. I was like, it was me the whole time.
It was me. Sometimes it's like, you know, I joke when I used to date. I'm like, man, why do I keep dating all these crazy broads? What? Oh, common denominator.
You.
Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Brian Houseworth is here.
It's good to see you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too. Sporting Crimson, Sporting Red. Stephanie Bell is Sporting Red, too.
I am.
My name is Branden Rathert. John Marsh is joining us, too. Chris is in for Hannah. Producer Hannah is going to be back following the big Labor Day vacation.
And now for nominees for the winners and losers of the week.
I think this is my favorite part of the week. Winners and losers of the week here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 104.5 News Radio KWOS and 93.9 The Eagle. Because we go back over the week and we pick winners and losers. The more localer, the more importanter. And Boone County Clerk Brianna Lennon, who I think she has a D behind her name, and it doesn't matter. She will always be a winner of the week for me in 2 reasons. Number one, I love the fact Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, every time he's here, he always makes a point to compliment the work that Brianna Lennon does when it comes to voting. And she, quote, tweeted me one time. We were talking about elections. Yep. And I told her the more localer, the more importanter, which we're going to see here in the coming years following SCOTUS decision earlier this summer regarding Dobbs. And we're going to see it, the people more, the more local or the more important. Who do you have for winners, losers of the week, Steph?
Well, one local company here I have, VU, made that. They made People Magazine.
Yeah.
And so People Magazine named the 100 companies that care, meet employers putting their communities first. Number 1, Target. Number 2, Veterans United, right here in Columbia. Number 2. Out of 100, yeah. So huge, just huge kudos to them. We know, from everyone I know that works there, they all have great things to say, but, having that recognition nationally is so important to our community, and, kudos to them on growing that company and making it such a great place to work. And then they specifically pointed out they're doing such good work. They gave away, I think, 11 homes to veterans through their social media campaign. So just enormous contributions to the community.
They're also doing some other stuff that we can't talk about right now that maybe we can talk about next week. But the company VU is always giving back to the community, and they're just involved in a number of different charities, foundations, etc.
And the thing that I love is that the people they hire. It's and how many companies say this? It's the people. Guess what? It's the people. It really is.
Yes,
and I've
it
been
is.
there, like when they've given checks to Welcome Home, who does incredible work in this community for veterans. They just do some really cool stuff. Before we go, I want to mention, because I'll forget, because I'm forgetful. Connie Nussbaum lives in Jefferson City. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's several years ago, and KRCG did a story on her to help her overcome or deal with her Parkinson's. And I don't know how old she is. They didn't say.
She's about. John may know. I'm going to
Don't
say.
give away her age on air.
Well,
Can I give her a demo?
Yeah, she's
but the context, I think, a little bit is the age.
The age, because she needs help. Yes.
Yeah, and the Parkinson's.
Well, with Parkinson's, if you don't exercise, your muscles can get tight and shorter. And so when I heard about the program, it just sounded like the ideal thing to do.
I love that. Yeah. She's, however old she is, she's boxing. She's taking up boxing. She has Parkinson's. She said, I've never boxed before. And kind of said, I'm going to go boxing. And now she probably kick my butt. Who you got for winner of the week?
I'll tell you, I've got a couple, but that is a great story, and I'm glad for them for telling that. I've got two very quickly, Brandon and Stephanie. Blake Baker, the new Mizzou defensive coordinator. They had 3 picks last night. That's a positive thing, so congrats there to Blake and to the coach Drinkwitz for the win. And then the other company I've got, or a group, if you will, I was at Blue Ridge Elementary this week, guys, for children in one of the poorest schools here in Columbia. And MU Health donated thousands of books to the children. And they were right in front of me as the children got the books. And as I told Dr. Yearwood, it was like these kids were given millions of dollars. It was very heartbreaking. They don't have very much at all. But Dr. Yearwood even choked up talking about it. But it was a really neat event. I'll have a little story on that I'm working on for next week. But MU Health donating thousands of books, not just to Blue Ridge, but a couple other schools as well.
We actually got a couple of nominations this week. One is in the form of a phone call that we got here on the show that I want to highlight. But first, Travis says he's picking Stephanie Bell for winner of the week.
Why?
Because Stephanie agrees with him that you should share your wages with your coworkers.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I asked Stephanie, how much do you make here? And she won't share that.
I have one, though. So I was watching football practice earlier this week at Southern Boone, and the high schoolers were finishing up their practice, and they all came over to the 5th grade practice and handed out fist bumps and said, have a good I'm going to get choked up talking about it.
Awesome.
And so as a young kid, to have the high school football players come over and say, have a good practice, man, you could just see the little kids light up. And then also, I am getting kind of choked up. I would also say all of the dads and the coaches in those younger, football leagues, they are spending so much time on the field getting those kids ready for, high school football. And I see, it's in Southern Boone, it's at Blair Oaks, it's at Jeff City. A lot of folks are putting in a lot of hours with those kids, and I appreciate it.
That is important, especially when you have, teens, young adults working with other kids. That is so powerful. Yep. Because it sends a message like, hey, man, we're all just helping each other. It's those stereotypes. Teens, they don't care about little kids. All right, John, since you're about the only one here not getting a little choked up. We've got Brian getting choked up with the books. Stephanie's choked up. Stephanie telling her story's got me going a little bit. What do you got for winner of the week? I'm all in, bud.
Wow.
I like that. And before you get to your loser, I want to highlight another Cardinal, Adam Wainwright, who he's very likely going to be done this year, along with Yadi and Albert Pujols. He was mic'd up. I think it was a Sunday night game. He's in the bullpen getting warmed up for another major league start. He's doing warm-ups, and he's giving, I guess, advice that the guys that are talking to him are asking him, and he's talking about his experience and positivity.
Routine, it's great as long as it doesn't become superstition. If you're out there thinking you got to do exactly the same thing every time to have success, then that's making you a weaker competitor. If they told me right now that I had 8 pitches to get loose, I could do that. Because you are what your brain tells you are.
Amen, Brother Wainwright. You are. And I believe
That's
in
awesome.
that. You are what you tell yourself to be. You can set your own reality, and I believe that. You can make things happen. Who's your loser of the week?
And that that incident at the Capitol Mall was a big deal, John. I think there was a carnival going on, as I recall, but man, a lot of people saw that.
And that's interesting because we were just highlighting, as Stephanie was telling a story about these high schoolers going and fist bumping the Pee Wee League football kids, and we talk about here you have kids that are being a positive influence in somebody else's life, and then you've got this other kid, and I hope the kid, regarding this fight where the mom decided to go and throw Molotov cocktails at somebody else's house, I hope all of those kids involved, I hope they turn out okay, and hey, listen, when you get mad at people, you don't ram your car into somebody like happened in Camdenton.
And there was a murder, too.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the guy died.
Yeah, he died. I mean...
And earlier this week in Columbia, and here we're going all negative now, it's not my intent, but on Old 63, and then the thing that then went to the links, some dudes driving down the road in Columbia, and they disagree with each other, and they're pulling out guns. My gosh.
And punching his car windows out.
Yeah.
And driving a rental car, and it's just mind-boggling, Brandon. It really is.
All right, anybody else that we want to put forward as winners of the week? John Morlock, veteran survivor of a suicide attempt. I appreciated the fact he goes out and shares his story. He does a Heroes Outreach program. State Rep Dave Griffith at a hearing this week regarding mental health services for veterans. Matter of fact, Dave Griffith is going to be here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri coming up Wednesday, or maybe it's Tuesday. I can't remember. Details. I'm not the detail guy. That's Stephanie Bell. And there are some cool things happening this weekend. Tomorrow, Hal Dooley's going to be out and about. Where's he going to be, John? Jim Dyke does cartoons for the Jefferson City News Tribune, gave us a gift. And there's some other cool things happening here on a Feel Good Friday. As a matter of fact, Angela Nale is going to be joining us about 5 minutes from now. Big stuff when it comes to local high school football. We're doing that 5 minutes from now on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri, featuring Branden Rathert.
There are crazy positions on the far left and crazy positions on the far right. On the left, there are people who believe a man can get pregnant, that the world is going to end in a decade if we don't cap carbon emissions, that the real purpose of the American Revolution was to preserve slavery. On the right, there are people who deny the Holocaust happened, who believe that whites are inherently superior to other races, that no one should pay taxes. But there's an important difference between these two extremes. The crazies on the right have no voice. They are shunned. They live mostly on the far fringes of the internet. The crazies on the left have a loud voice. They are celebrated. They live in the halls of Congress, in state legislatures, and in governors' mansions. In light of this distinction, it might be interesting to ask ourselves this question: which group, the left or the right, is more radical? We can arrive at a common sense answer by posing this thought experiment. What would America look like if the left got everything it wanted, and what would America look like if the right got everything it wanted? Let's start with the left. Taxes would go up on individuals and corporations to pay for more social programs. Everything from universal child care to free college tuition. Many on the left call for income taxes as high as 70%. Private health insurance would be abolished. The government would provide all healthcare services. Everyone in the medical field, from doctors, nurses, and administrators, would be government employees. Americans would pay for this government healthcare through much higher taxes. Illegal immigration would be decriminalized. It would still be illegal to enter the country without proper documentation, but no one who made it into the U.S. would be prosecuted for doing so. Illegal immigrants would also receive free healthcare, free education, and free housing. The Green New Deal would be adopted. Hundreds of billions of dollars of subsidies for wind and solar power would be added to the federal budget. Drilling for fossil fuels, the current source of 80% of our energy, would be sharply curtailed or eliminated altogether. So would nuclear power. As a result, consumers' electric bills would be much higher. Reparations would be paid for the past injustice of slavery. How it would be paid and exactly to whom is not clear. Legally acquiring a gun would become much more difficult. College debt would be canceled. Those who had already paid for college would get nothing. Transgender women, biological men who identify as women, would be allowed to compete against women in sports. America's military budget would be slashed by 25 to 50%. Speech codes would be enforced throughout American life. And that's just a partial list. Now let's ask what would happen if the right got what it wanted. Income taxes would be cut. Capital gains taxes would be cut. Corporate taxes would be cut. And those cuts would be made permanent. All regulations that make doing business unnecessarily difficult and don't protect public health would be repealed. The issue of abortion would be sent back to the states for each state to decide its own abortion rules for itself. Many more charter schools would be opened, and it would become much easier to fire bad teachers. In order to vote, citizens would need to present a valid ID. The border with Mexico would be secured. The only way to enter the United States would be through designated border crossings. In order to qualify for welfare assistance, you would have to prove you could not work. The healthcare system would be open to free market reforms. For example, insurance companies could sell policies across state lines. Students in elementary school would recite the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of each school day. So what can we conclude from our experiment? It's not hard to figure out. If the right got everything it wanted, the government would get much smaller. The citizen would have more freedom. If the left got everything it wanted, the government would get much bigger. The citizen would have less freedom. You're not radical if you want America to be what it's always been, committed to individual liberty. You're only radical if you want to fundamentally transform America into something it's never been. Which country do you want to live in? I'm Will Witt for Prager University.
You're candid, you're funny, you just come across as just a normal, common, regular guy. You're not, you're not like a stuffy, stuck-up, professor.
That's from listener John. Now, he's not talking about me. I'm not playing. He's talking actually about everybody. He was talking about the show. He called in a couple days ago, left a voicemail and said, hey, I'm digging this new show on 104.5 News Radio, KWOS 950. He said, I'm digging it, and he called. And so since it was my voicemail, that's why he's saying you. Just, I don't want to, man, what a pompous SOB. He's playing phone. It was for you, Steph.
Oh.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to work with you. You are winner of the week. Brian Hausworth, you are winner of the week. You for listening, you're winner of the week. John, you are a winner of the week. It is a pleasure hanging out with all y'all here on the field. And Chris, sorry, Chris has been in for producer Hannah. Appreciate you because you got to get up early. You do your own afternoon show on our sports station. I am incredibly appreciative.
Got a KFL game after the big show, too. So just a lot of stuff today.
And there's a lot of big, man. I love this time of year. Mizzou picks up a win last night. We've got high school football. As a matter of fact, want to bring into Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Central Bank's Angela Nale. Welcome in, Angela. You guys, you're doing something really cool tonight. What are you guys going to do? Hey, Angela, by the way, those chips, incidentally, are they the Luther Burden chips? Just, hey, good seeing you. Thanks for coming by. Angela now does all kinds of stuff. It's a name that you'll hear a lot in Jefferson City. It's a name like when you were involved in the downtown stuff. It's
we did a lot of work together with the Downtown Association, and Angela still keeps them going.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you do that, Angela, because we always talk about one of the big things, I think, here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We talk about getting involved and doing things and making a difference. And it doesn't always mean politically, and it doesn't necessarily just mean, for charities. And all that stuff is great. Getting involved politically, doing charitable work, I think all that stuff is great. But becoming a part of the community and just doing things, I think is really cool. Looking forward to it tonight. And then, man, last night I want to thank everyone. While we're on the theme of tailgates, I want to thank everybody for joining us last night at the Tiger Tailgate, a couple hours prior. And we're doing this. If you missed last night, how fun was this, man? Everybody after work, 50,000 folks coming to the ball game, almost 50,000 that were in attendance last night. And in case you missed it, we do this every single home game. We do the Tiger Tailgates, and here's what we do. We give you free food. There's free beer, all kinds of cool stuff, and we thank people like Bud Light, High Noon Seltzers, Buffalo Wild Wings, Culligan of Mid-Missouri. So here's what you do. If you miss this one, you want to get in on the next one here in a couple of weeks. You can go to places like, let's say, Big O Tires in Columbia. If you're in Jefferson City, you can also go to Big O Tires there. Whether it's, you can go to the one on Missouri Boulevard or on Jefferson Street. You go to those locations, you pick, and you just go in, and typically it's like Wednesday prior to the game, Wednesday week of the game, Wednesday about lunchtime usually. We have them out on the streets for you. You go into those places like Big O Tires and say, hey, man, I heard Branden and Stephanie and Marsh talking about I can get free passes for the tailgate. Yeah, they're free. You just ask for them. And then you join us. We launch 2 hours prior to every kickoff, and we do it all season long. Coming up Tuesday on the show, we hope you have a great weekend. Monday, we are going to be doing Best Of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
And I'll be sleeping in.
And we'll be sleeping in. We'll be taking a break. And I'm hopeful you get to do the same thing, too. But on 93.9 The Eagle and on 104.5 News Radio KWOS 950, we're going to be doing Best Of. So some of the highlights since we've been here. So that'll be fun. And then Tuesday, Chris Arps, Missouri-based Politico talking. I never know what to call him. I feel if I call him a talking head, it sounds like I'm insulting him, and I'm not.
He's got his own radio show. He's on Newsmax. He's got a cool website. He writes for Red State.
He knows what he's talking about, and especially when it comes to Missouri politics. And he's always got an interesting take. Plus, what else? Oh, Congressman Blaine Lukemeyer joins us. Yeah, he'll be here Tuesday morning, coming up at 8:10 on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Hope you have a really, really good weekend. Gary Nolan is coming up next. And if you don't get a chance to listen while you're at work, you can check out Gary online. You can do it on the app. But when you're coming home, you want some local stuff. Randy Tobler's here this afternoon at 4 o'clock. See ya.
Bye.